Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of WST Sunday Live. And man, oh man, I sometimes say that we have a great show planned today when we're talking about certain things, but I don't think anything will be topped than today's show. The Jets pick up a 4-1 win over the Dallas Stars, the best start in NHL history secured. And then later on, Princess Auto Stadium, Lyss and I were both there. The Bombers take care of business against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They're headed to their fifth straight Grey Cup. What a day. What a day of sports in the city of Winnipeg. Lyss, how are you doing?
I am doing super well. You're 100% right that it's like, yeah, there's so much. Wow, we have a great show planned because, knowing us, there's always something Jets to talk about. We can always find storylines. We can always find ways to have some good discourse and good conversation. But you can't really script these ones, and it gives us something real good to talk about and something really exciting to do on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely. I'm so fired up for the show. I was texting you after the Bomber game yesterday saying, like, this is unbelievable. This is a perfect script for our show today.
Screenshots of mine and Connor's text is just us going back and forth going, dude.
Just all caps.
Dude.
All caps. Yeah, it was wild. What a day. And, before we get into any Jets talk, any Bomber talk, yesterday, Super Sports Saturday, many fans, like, with heavy hearts on this day. Yes, Larry bringing it up. Ted Wyman, longtime Winnipeg Sun writer, sports writer here in the city of Winnipeg, passing away at the age of 58, battle with cancer. Absolutely devastating news on this morning. And on a Super Saturday where Ted, would have loved it, the Jets, the Bombers, such an awesome day for the city, for the sports. He would have been all over it. It's really tragic to hear that news. And I just want to say I only met Ted 2 or 3 times. Like I wasn't best buddies with Ted or anything like that. But the only 2 to 3 times that I met him, he always had a smile on his face. He always was, making Rick Bowness chuckle when he was asking him questions, making players laugh in the scrum. Like everything that you've seen online, all of the outpouring of support, all of the stories people are sharing about how, full of life Ted was. That was the impression I got only meeting him 2 to 3 times. So just wanted to bring up that before we got into the talk today, because terrible, terrible news yesterday. Ted Wyman passing away at the age of 58. And it was an awesome sports day in the city, and you can't bring that up without mentioning Ted. So rest in peace, Ted. Condolences to the family. And now we can move on. Let's get to the Jets game first. NHL history, 4-1 win over the Dallas Stars, 14-1. Okay. The Jets, like, I don't think anyone predicted this, obviously. Even if you told me they'd have the best power play in the league and all these numbers that they have, I still wouldn't have predicted this. But wow, what a game yesterday. The Jets dominated the Stars for the first 40 minutes, Lyss. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's one of those things that it's at the beginning of the season, the Jets are 6-0, the Jets are 7-0, and there's a lot of I'm trying to think of a similar team. There was a situation, the Miami Dolphins last year. Sorry, I always got to bring it back to my boys. They were playing against the Patriots and they were playing against the Jets and everything. And it's like people are like, oh, you can only beat bad teams. It's like you don't control the schedule. And the Jets were beating bad teams. Now they've been beating some good teams. Dallas Stars are a force to be reckoned with. I don't know if you shut your camera off on purpose, but just give me some proof of life here. If you're,
I'm trying to get. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Trying to get my camera back on. Hold on, give me a sec.
No worries. But the Dallas Stars are a real team, and this actually, in my opinion, kind of goes back to my hot take of the offseason, which is that I don't think any of the real threatening contenders. Your green screen is off. Just FYI.
Green screen. There we go. We're coming back.
Any of the real contenders got a lot better this year. And I thought this iteration of the Dallas Stars did not look super threatening to me. I was mortified of the Dallas Stars last year. Every time the Winnipeg Jets had to play them, that was a strong team, and they are still a strong team. But the Winnipeg Jets smackdown of them, they didn't smack down the Colorado Avalanche by any means, but they really held on tight and showed what a tight defensive game that they can play and how they can manage chaos pretty well. This was a bit of a different situation. This was a 6-0 Oilers win, right? Like, this was a really, really strong performance by the Winnipeg Jets through 40 minutes. I don't care too much about, the last 20. When your team is losing winning 4-1, it's okay if you take your foot off the gas a little bit. It's okay if I don't know what's going on with you, but
I don't know either. Hold on.
It's okay if the other team should have some pushback, because they should be embarrassed that they got Jake Ottinger chased out of the game. They should be embarrassed that they're supposed to be the best team in the Central and they're coming in and wiping the floor or getting wiped by one who going into the season had lower expectations than them. So that's my little monologue on why I felt so compelled and convinced about them.
Yeah, and just real quick, I mean, the US backup chance. I mean, the Jets fans still have their fastball. I mean, the US backup thing.
That was good.
Are we back? Oh, this is the wrong camera. But anyways, you can see me now.
I can.
That was great. The US backup chance. The Jets fans still have their fastball. I mean, the US backup is probably a compliment to Jake Ottinger. Hate to say it, but if he beats out Jeremy Swayman for that backup job, that's kind of a compliment there. So, yeah, but it was a sellout crowd yesterday.
You think too hurt to?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know.
But you're right. Either way, I mean, it's one of those things that I can't believe they get to have that argument when we're sitting here. It's like, is it going to be Aiden Hill or Jordan Binnington? Who's to say? But you know what? Besides the point, I'll try not to be too bitter about that one. But
yeah, exactly. I like Connor Hellebuck's the starter. Everyone knows it. And yesterday, sellout crowd. You could tell through the TV. Like, I did not go to yesterday's Jets game, but watching on the TV, listening to the sound on full blast, it was loud on the TV. And look, the Jets dominated this game. Like you said, all this talk about the schedule, it's a little bit light to start the year, and the Jets, are taking advantage of teams below them in the standings. Every team's below them in the standings right now, but Dallas is one of those teams. That is the class of the Central. They were the 1 seed last year, and the Jets dominated this game for the first 40 minutes. And I don't really have time for the third period. Like, I don't really care. I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, they got outshot like 19-5, but they were up 4-0 and absolutely dominated the game in the first 40 minutes. Like, that game was not close. Like you said, it was 6-0 Oilers-esque, that domination. So really, really unbelievable game. And Lyss, I want to talk about the coaching staff, because I was, we were having our pregame, kind of party for the Bomber game yesterday, and people were asking, this is the same Jets team. What's going on? Why are they so much better? Like, or why are they winning all these games if it's the same team as last year? And I said coaching. Like, Davis Payne, the power play coach, Dean Chenoweth, the penalty kill coach, what they have done to this team's special teams, making it a weakness and taking a weakness and turning it into a strength. And not only a strength in the power play, but the best power play in the NHL. It's been an unbelievable start for the special teams units. And I think that's the biggest reason why we're seeing such success with the Jets, who returned to the same roster from last year.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit less like, there are a lot of people that are, talking about how awesome they think Scott Arniel is and everything like that. And I totally, you can't say that he's a bad coach or even a mediocre one when he has a 15-1 roster, right? It's never been done in the NHL to start the season before. Obviously, that's pretty special. However, I agree that special teams are a huge contribute to that. Like Ian's saying in the chat, Davis Payne, like I was saying in the preseason, as soon as I saw the first game of that team moving the puck on the power play, I was like, build the statue immediately. I was like, this is going to cook this year. I was on board. But where I fall is also, I think it's important to acknowledge, not to be the Debbie Downer after this Super Saturday, this wasn't a bad hockey team last year. Like,
right. Oh, yeah.
Erasing the last 5 games of the season. And obviously, yeah, okay, there was a bit of a collapse in the second half of the season, like we've seen from the Jets before. But like, do you guys remember the vibes in December last year? Do you guys remember? That was probably one of the most like top 3 exciting moments to be a Jets fan last year. The vibes were excellent. This had the potential to be a good hockey team from the beginning. So I'm not saying that I think the coaching isn't doing anything in particular. I think the coaching had some significantly negative impacts last year. Everything to do with the Cole Perfetti situation. People know how I feel about that. That was a massive blunder on the coaching staff's part, in my opinion. The special teams coaches should have been gone in January. I think there are a lot of conversations around those sorts of things that we shouldn't be surprised that this is a good hockey team. 15-1 isn't a mistake. I'm not saying that they're fluky, they're lucky or
14.
anything like that. Or sorry.
Whoa.
14 wins in 15 games is not anything fluky.
Yes.
Like, we've moved on from that part of the season where, the Utah Hockey Club is second in the Central. Like, we're not too worried. I think they actually might still be like fifth or something, but
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah.
But I think I'm not ready to build the statue of particularly Scott Arniel or anything like that just yet, but I do think the special teams being more consistent, because like last year, the Winnipeg Jets won the Jennings Trophy with one of the worst penalty kills in the league, and they had scoring threats in Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi, Nikolai Ehlers, and Mark Scheifele, and had like the 22nd best power play in the NHL. Like, the special teams were almost like, you almost couldn't possibly be worse than what the Jets had last year, right? So I think that's been just a huge regressing back to the mean and then beyond, I think has had such a huge impact.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up, because it's also not just like Davis Payne came in and said, all right, everyone move more, pass more, shoot more, done. Like, there was innovation on the power play with Nikolai Ehlers in that pop position. That is something that past coaching staffs haven't thought of. Nikolai Ehlers is 28 years old. He's been here a long time. He's never been in the middle of the power play before, and he has completely unlocked this top power play unit. And again, he's in the middle of the power play, but he doesn't stick there. He's moving to the corners, moving to the wall, and Mark Scheifele slides into the bumper. Like, there's so many moving parts on this power play, and then the top unit doesn't score. Okay, the second unit comes over the boards, and they play a much more, I know this is like a hockey lingo thing that like doesn't really make any sense, but I think they play more direct on the power play. Like, they are just throwing a ton of pucks at the net. The Alex Iafallo goal yesterday was an example of that. Nemestikov with a great pass from the corner onto Iafallo's tape right in the slot. But that's just an example of that second unit kind of just getting pucks into the crease and just like going for it. And Cole Perfetti does that. Nino Niederreiter does that. And that second unit has been weirdly, weirdly I say, because obviously the talent is on the top unit, but the second unit has been fantastic this year. And they're a huge reason why the Jets still have the top power play in the NHL.
I know why that is. It's because of Cole Perfetti. Don't even pretend it's anything but that. The other players have been playing good hockey, just like the whole Winnipeg Jets roster has been playing good hockey. But giving Cole Perfetti a little bit of extra room to work his magic changes everything. He's had a positive touch on every single power play goal that second unit has had. If he doesn't have a point on it, like even like yesterday's, the Alex Iafallo goal, he doesn't get a point on that, but he manages that wall really, really well. Like, it's a huge factor for me.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Cole
I want to mention though, I want to bring up some of these points we're having in the chat here, and now it's time for me to become a little bit more of a Jets homer. SK and Greg are talking about how they're not going to be convinced until they beat teams like Florida and the Rangers. My first thing I say about that, teams like the Florida and the Rangers, there's just Florida and the Rangers. There's no other teams like those. Are the two best teams in the NHL in terms of like, in my opinion, there should be like, the top 10 teams that you're like, oh, I want to beat them. Dallas is in the top 10 teams of the NHL. Colorado could still, I don't know, but I am significantly more convinced by this Winnipeg Jets roster and their sustainability and how good and competitive they are now than I was when they were like 6-0 or whatever, when they were winning those overtime games against Chicago, when they were, the top line was getting absolutely caved in at 5-on-5. I wasn't feeling super confident. The fact that team beat the Colorado Avalanche and played such a tight defensive game, and Connor Hellebuyck had an incredibly strong performance in his shutout.
Yep.
And everyone in the media was saying that practice the next day was like a team that was on a 6-game losing streak. That is what convinced it for me. And watching the bounce back performance after that game against the Colorado Avalanche, they've had some strong games this past couple weeks. I don't need to see them play the Florida Panthers or New York Rangers to be convinced that I think this team has the potential to be absolutely the real deal.
Yeah, I'm with you. And someone brought up a point here. Hold on. Eric K brought up the point. It's more important to beat Colorado and Dallas than Florida and New York. You want to beat the teams in your division, in your conference. If you're going to beat these top 10 teams, like you say, Lyss, the teams that are the class of the NHL, why not do it against the teams that are in your division. Those are the ones that really matter. And
I think Mike McIntyre does a good job of I think it might be him, and apologies if it's not, but going through and outlining how many points of a gap the Jets keep gaining on these teams, and like they're 10 points. No, yeah, they're only like 4 points ahead of Dallas right now, but I think they're 10 points ahead of Colorado.
they're
and
way
like
up on Dallas. Way up on Dallas. They're like 12 points up on Dallas.
Oh, sorry, yeah, they're 5
They're
points
like,
up
yeah.
on Minnesota. Sorry, because I'm
Yes.
not thinking. Yeah, and they're like 16 points now up on the Nashville Predators, who are just fun, such a fun story there. But like, yeah, like you said, these are huge divisional games, and I love, what is this here, Snackatoba's comment here, that just like last week when people said they wouldn't be convinced until after the Avs and Stars game. Listen, I am the queen of pessimism when it comes to watching a hockey team. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I think this team is perfect. I was texting Connor about this, and I was like, we have 51 weeks of the year to talk about what the Jets need to do differently and what the Jets need to do better. Are they a perfect team right now? Absolutely not. But we can talk about that imperfectness some other time, because right now we are feeling so good, so excited. We are so happy. There's so many people here in the chat on a Sunday morning because it is a fun time to be a Winnipeg sports fan. The Winnipeg Jets are performing. They are delivering. They gave us 2-3 almost shutouts in those heritage blue uniforms. Some really incredible performances. People mentioning guys like Carey in the chat. You brought up Iafallo. This is a team effort. This defense core that, everyone thought was the biggest weakness of this team going into the season has been really, really strong. Connor Hellebuyck, like people are saying, should actually, we've been saying it for a few years that he should be in Hart conversations. At this point, he absolutely is, and it's not a homer take whatsoever. He absolutely has to be. Back-to-back Vezinas are fully on the table. Like, now's the time to be talking about the absolute wagon that is the Winnipeg Jets.
And Jeff saying, I'm not convinced till we go 81-1. That's the benchmark that they got to hit. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I mean, yesterday was such a special day in the city of Winnipeg. Thank you for joining us. 9 a.m. Sunday morning. I know a lot of people are going to be watching this on the replay, sleeping in.
I don't blame you.
I get it.
I would be too if I wasn't actually having to be here live. So
trust me, I get it. If you're watching on the replay or watching on the podcast, I get it. But we appreciate everyone who joined us here live at 9 a.m. and is contributing in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone. What a special day yesterday. Jets beat the Stars, which we're going to continue to talk about. And we'll talk about the Bombers later on in the episode, because, hey, they're going to their 5th straight Grey Cup with a win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 38-22. Princess Auto Stadium was absolutely rocking. Sellout crowd. That was so much fun. We'll talk about that later on. But you brought up the fourth line. You brought up Rasmus Carey, Alex Iafallo, and they hadn't gotten the goals this year until yesterday afternoon. I was going to say last night. I guess I could say last night. But they've controlled the shots. They've controlled the expected goals in their limited minutes. Yesterday, Alex Iafallo scores in the power play, but then Rasmus Carey gets his 2nd of the year. A really nice forecheck, shot on goal from Iafallo. Carey using that speed to get in on the forecheck, and then bangs home the rebound right in front of Ottinger. Just a great play. And what have you thought of that fourth line this season in general? Because, again, they haven't gotten the goals yet. They got one yesterday, Rasmus Carey. But I feel like the process has been right with that trio.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think, this is a line that, as soon as I start talking about them, I start kind of flicking my wrist a little bit, because I start going in with the old head hockey isms and stuff like that. When Morgan Barron is on the ice, you always know that Morgan Barron is on the ice. He and Nino Niederreiter, if I had to pick any 2 players in this team to go in for a forecheck and try and battle it out with some guy on the boards and, make it into those battles and, give them a little bit of a run for their money, like, those are the 2 guys I'm picking every day of the week. Like, Morgan Barron has absolutely no quit in him whatsoever. You talked about how fast Rasmus Carey is. That's obviously been partially the bit with him, but also, like, it is a strong suit of his. You can't deny that he has some wheels. And Alex Iafallo is a little bit of a kind of, he's kind of a matchmaker in the sense that he can be pretty complimentary with a couple different play styles, has some strong defensive skills that you think is, well suited for a bottom 6 and everything. The issue with some of those guys is that I just don't feel like, you can have a strength, but if you're not using it as a strength, it doesn't translate into what it could. And I think this year we're seeing, for example, Morgan Barron, I think, has done an incredible job of chasing every puck down and into the boards, and then popping it out and making some positive possession, as opposed to just like, sitting there with your hips into the boards and trying to freeze that puck a little bit. No, like the playmaking is increasing a little bit for Morgan Barron, in my opinion, which is hugely complemented by his aggressive play style along the boards. Rasmus Kupari, like I feel like we're seeing a little bit more of the offense from him, in the sense of like, okay, 2 goals are 2 goals. Like I'm not, again, everyone's heard me complain about how I can't believe, like last year I didn't think he was that good, but everyone just kind of always categorized it into it. So, because he didn't score, which isn't enough for me. But last year,
Right.
I felt there was a lot of cycling going on and not a lot of driving when that player was on the ice. And both of his goals this year have come from tighter spots closer to the net that I feel like he didn't spend a lot of time in last year. And this is just a long monologue to say, I think these players have always had these strong skills, but I just feel like they're playing a little bit more as a cohesive unit right now, that's amplifying those skills and turning them into offense. People in the chat are saying they spend a lot of time in the ozone. That's excellent. That's all I want from them. I don't need them to score like a bunch of goals, whatever. I just don't want them to get caved, and I want them to go out there, exhaust the defense a little bit, pepper the goalie with some shots, keep the puck out of the Jets' end, whatever. I've been really pleased with what I've seen from them, and frankly, if the other 3 lines keep producing at the level they are right now, they can score 0 goals for the rest of the year for all I care, right? Like the
Right.
beauty of the Winnipeg Jets is their diversified scoring. I totally get that.
Yep.
But I'm okay with diversified scoring from 9 guys. And, Alex Iafallo on the power play, if you will, right? Like I'm not too concerned about them. I think they've been really, really excellent.
I think so too. And you brought up, the hockey isms or whatever. I feel like fourth lines always get described as like, okay, as long as you don't get scored on, as long as you just like control the puck, that's a good fourth line. And the Jets fourth line is doing more than that.
Yeah.
Because they like fourth lines in general, I mean, often get described as that, but they're forechecking really well. You saw it on that goal that Rasmus Kupari scored. Like you said, I follow on the power play as well, but they are spending a lot of time in the opposition zone. That's leading to shots, which they're dominating at even strength when they're on the ice. They're dominating the expected goals, the scoring chances, all that stuff. So couldn't really ask for more from the fourth line, except for goals, which they were getting outscored 1-2 in their minutes to start the season. But after last night, they scored a goal at 5-on-5. So a great game for that fourth line, and starting to get rewarded for what they've been doing this year, which is controlling the puck and forechecking really, really well. Is there anything else to say about Josh Morrissey at this point, Lyss? People brought him up earlier on. Again, we've got the Four Nations face-off. I brought up the U.S. backup chant. Josh Morrissey is going to play a top 4 role for Canada. He might play a top pairing role for Canada with Cale Makar. Can he play goalie? Yeah. Well, Josh Morrissey can do it all. Maybe. No, but seriously, like Josh Morrissey's unbelievable, and he had another incredible game yesterday against the Dallas Stars. I just wanted to single him out because he's had a great start to the year, and he's continuing what he did last year.
Yeah, I think what I just kind of want to shout him out for too is that the last couple seasons, obviously last year in particular, he was really, really strong and he was really good. And I didn't want to say it's the DeMello effect. I don't want to credit his success to Dylan DeMello. Josh Morrissey's his own player. Josh Morrissey is a more talented hockey player than Dylan DeMello, but he was heavily complimented by Dylan DeMello playing excellent hockey and helping manage his, workload and everything like that, and kind of put him in the best situation to succeed. That's how teams work. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but this year, I think Dylan DeMello has been great because Dylan DeMello, I don't think is physically capable of not playing great hockey. He's an extremely good defenseman, but he's not as good as he was last year. And Josh Morrissey looks the exact same. So I think it's really nice to see that, Josh Morrissey has fully become his own top 4 NHL defenseman, top pairing defenseman, NHL player, right? Like, and I don't really have a lot else to say on him. Connor and I have been talking, as most of you probably know, we do the WST deep dive series, and we're kind of going through and planning out our episodes and stuff like that. And I remember I mentioned, I was like, oh, we could do a Josh Morrissey one. You're like, what do you want to say? We're supposed to do a weaknesses section of this video. What do you want me to do? And I was like,
he's amazing. Done.
Yeah.
The video. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think again, yesterday was an exceptional game. I thought, Winnipeg in particular yesterday, like, again, one thing that I've really liked about this team is, again, the diversification of everything. And, the Winnipeg Jets, I feel like in a few games this season have had some good controlled offense. So, like in zone, managing the puck and stripping pucks away, good forecheck and everything. Yesterday was a really good rush game, in my opinion. I think they really were good at the breakout pass and carrying the puck into the zone. Dallas was really on their heels. And Josh Morrissey was a big factor that he skates the puck so well. And great comment here about how well he manages to break up offense from other teams and turn it into controlled zone entries is really impressive. Yes, someone else often does do the second carry from center ice into the offensive zone, but that's not possible without the first pass, right? People always talk about the first pass, and Josh Morrissey's first pass was excellent yesterday.
Yep, I agree. And all season long, he's been awesome. And Darth Skater here bringing up Dylan Samberg. He's also had an amazing start to the year. I mean, I was always a massive fan of Samberg when he was on the third pair. Again, Brendan Dillon and Josh Morrissey are top 4 left-handed D, so you're not really going to, move Samberg up, but I thought he skated really well, killed plays off the rush, really good penalty killer. And then he steps up into that top 4, and he's been the exact same guy. Like the one knock on Dylan Samberg was that he didn't produce enough offense. And maybe there's another knock, is that he did it in a sheltered role. It was a third pairing role, right? He is coming up to the second pairing now in tougher minutes. He even led the Jets in time on ice. I think it was Thursday night against Colorado. So he's playing a top 4 role, and he's doing the same thing. They're posting great results, him and Neil Pionk. So really, really good start to the year for the Jets defense core in general. I had a hot take before the year that they would go from first in goals against to outside the top 12. That's not looking too good right now with back-to-back games with a shutout, and then get scored on with a minute and a half left against Dallas to break Connor Hellebuck's franchise-setting shutout streak, which I think was at 190 minutes or something like that. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, something like 188, I think is the last I saw, or whatever.
Yeah,
incredible. But while we're super brief comment about goaltending, people are kind of going on and on in the chat about when Comrie's going to get his next start because Hellebuck's been playing incredible. I say whenever they feel like it, because I was shocked when Comrie played his first game against Calgary. Was it? No, Pittsburgh. That was his second game. Pittsburgh, yeah. The Brian Little game, the Pittsburgh game, like the 1000th game in NHL Jets 2.0 history, like when they were protecting a hot streak and everything, and they're like, no, we can play Eric Comrie. This team is so calm, cool, and collected about everything. They will play Eric Comrie on their regular scheduled programming. Like he will get the game that they slotted him in, they circled in September. I don't think they're going to change the way they're playing these guys right now.
I think it's tempting though. Connor Hellebuck, like just not letting in goals right now. I know it's oversimplified, but he went 191 minutes without letting in a goal, right? So I think,
and not for
he
lack
plays
of
Tuesday in New York.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but definitely not for lack of trying on Colorado's part in particular. Like, holy smokes, that was that third period was a tough watch. I'm not gonna lie, but and we have some people in the chat mentioning Logan Stanley as well. I'm not talking about him today. This is my day. This is the day of happiness. This is the day of excitement, and nobody needs to be criticized. Stanley's been fine the last couple of games, and we're not talking about that. So
yeah, he's been fine. I will say, I did think by this point we'd see Hayden Fleury again, right? Whether it was for performance or otherwise, just rotating him in, right? And we haven't.
Well, especially because that was the thing. They were like, nobody's gonna get cold. Dylan Coughlin's gonna get some games, and Logan Stanley's gonna get some games. And
Coughlin, no.
I'm not sure what's going on there, but
they're not rotating in.
Jared Anderson-Dolan though.
Yes.
On the mend health wise, looks like he's out of the non-contact. He's been practicing and will likely be activated off of the injured reserve soon because he was just sent down for a conditioning stint with the Manitoba Moose. Yes. Do you think that's going to shake anything up, or is he the guy going on waivers? Because I think he's the guy going on waivers. But
I think I agree. I think he's the guy going on waivers. It'll be nice to see him play, get that conditioning stint. He's new to the team, of course, but nice to see him healthy. But I do think he's the guy on waivers, especially again, the Jets are 14-1. So like we're talking about Comrie getting a start and rotating in Hayden Fleury, but as the head coach, as Scott Arniel, I'm sure it's really tough to mess with a winning lineup, the greatest start in NHL history, right? So Really interesting. And look, we've got
I'm
this guy, this
surprised at
Yahoo in the
minute.
chat.
Who
Who
is
is
this
this
guy?
guy? Who is it? Yeah, let me
I don't know if you
ban
heard me
him.
snort when I saw that comment. I was like, oh my god.
Let me ban this guy.
Shout out to Jacob. I think Jacob's on vacay maybe right now.
Jacob's on vacay in a warmer place. I mean, hey, it's warm here.
Yeah.
Look, I got to clear something up from last Sunday as well. Jacob was on the show with me. I had the take that it was too warm for the West Final. The look ahead forecast. I was like, I want to be cold. That's part of the experience. Bundling up, West Final, Winnipeg. That's what everyone talks about, right? It's you don't want to go to Winnipeg in November because it's going to be freezing cold. But it was plus 13 yesterday. I take it all back. Yesterday was absolutely gorgeous. I wore like a hoodie and pants to the game and like thin gloves. Like it was awesome. It was awesome. Like it was I take it back. I did not
decide what to wear to the game yesterday. I was like, I
did
don't
not want to be
know.
cold.
This is not what I'm used to. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those things where it's like, haha, why is it this temperature in November in Winnipeg?
Yeah.
But you know what?
Yeah, my dad brought out all like the hand warmers and the gloves and the toques, and it was like, I don't know. I don't know if we need that, but didn't need it. Well, thanks for popping by, Jacob. 9:30.
Jacob's here. Every Sunday is some iteration of the two of us plus Jacob.
Yes,
those are usually the best ones, in my opinion. Gotta say, going 3 for 3 is usually the best show, but you can catch him here every other Sunday. It really depends. We kind of just we like to keep it interesting. So sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Jacob, and sometimes you get your money's worth and you get the both of us. But Connor is always here because
I'm always here.
He's our WST guy.
Oh yeah, I'm always here, and I could never miss a show like today. I mean, unbelievable. Truly. A couple more things on the Jets before we move on. I want to talk about. We can call them the second line again. Vladislav Nemestikov, Nikolai Ehlers, and Cole Perfetti. There was a time there, first 3-4 games, where they were the third line pretty comfortably. But they're back. Their time on ice reflects it. They're the second line. And Nikolai Ehlers yesterday was flying around the ice. He had one back check where Dallas flipped the puck out of the zone, and he was like tracking it down almost like an NFL receiver, like over his shoulder, trying to get it. The puck bounced in front of him, and the Dallas player picked up the puck. And he, because he was going full speed tracking down this puck, stole it and went around the net faster than I think I've ever seen Nikolai Ehlers skate. Like he was absolutely moving. Vladislav Nemestikov, I want to bring up as well, because the first couple games when this line was the third line and they were struggling, Jacob and I think you as well, Lyss, were on this show and talked about how Nemestikov needed to be better. And he was kind of killing plays at the blue line. Plays were dying on his stick. He's been so much better these past couple of games. Had the goal yesterday where, I don't know, maybe if he jams that puck in and Ottinger has it covered, maybe it's a goal anyways, because we don't know what goaltender interference is, but he beats him to the punch anyways, pokes that puck in. And he's been so good on that second line. And Nikolai Ehlers flying yesterday, Cole Perfetti with another great game as well. Took that cross check late. Cole Perfetti had a game. I mean, he got elbowed in the face and then hit Logan Stankoven in the numbers. Then he got cross-checked from behind with Jamie Benn, which prompted Adam Lowry to fight in the third period. But what have you seen from that second line? Obviously, they've had the turnaround from the first 3 games. But yesterday against Dallas, another team with a deep forward core, I thought they dominated and looked maybe the best they've looked all year long.
You're not gonna. No one's gonna want to hear my take on this. No one's gonna learn anything interesting.
Oh,
Cole Perfetti, man.
Cole Perfetti.
I mean, Nikolai Ehlers, listen, contract year Nikolai Ehlers is definitely cooking. And Vlad Nemestikov, I definitely agree. And he was getting some love in the chat earlier. You know, some people are saying that, you know, he's a bona fide 2 center at this point. Not sure if I agree with that entirely, but I think, you know, right now, the Winnipeg Jets have the luxury to deploy that line how they want to deploy them.
Deploy.
It's early, guys. I'm sorry. The way they want to deploy them, right? And right now, what that's looking like is a lot of offensive zone starts, and it looks like, you know, a lot of letting Nikolai Ehlers kind of skate around and do what he wants. And that's, I'm not a Nikolai Ehlers conspiracy theorist by any means, but I'm sorry, you watch Jets games, you understand why playing with that guy would be a little bit confusing. He's just kind of doing whatever he wants at all times, and he's a little bit like, you know, I love watching him. Like, He's the type of guy who, Adam Lowry will like go fencing for a puck on the penalty kill. Nikolai Ehlers would dive and like try and stab that puck or something, right? Like he's just
Yeah.
kind of an odd fellow. And the results of the odd fellow are indisputably positive. He's extremely good at hockey, and that is not a negotiable statement at this point. And frankly, it has never been in his career, and I've never had time for that argument. But I understand why maybe there are some guys who are like, it's not my favorite to play with that guy because I don't really know what's going on. Sure, fair enough. Can't argue with that. It is what it is.
I agree.
Will say, loved that we saw Ehlers, Scheifele, Velarde at the end of the Colorado game because Arniel knew that something needed to change and whatnot. But I'm not saying I'm calling for anyone's head for that line immediately. Where I'm going with this is that Vlad Nemestikov is a guy who is simply capital H happy to be here. Is a role player guy on the team. He's happy to kind of slot into the lineup as needed. Last year, he bounced around a ton. He's kind of like the new. I'm trying to think of it, not because Walmart version is far too unkind to him, but he's kind of the new Matthew Perreault on this team, right? Like you really need him to go up and play first line for that game. Okay, go ahead. You can do that. I'm not going to be that.
And he can do it. Yeah.
So you have that guy. And then you have Cole Perfetti, who is just trying to secure a permanent spot in this lineup, who's trying to prove to everyone that it didn't make sense for a guy who scored 20 goals last year to have been a healthy scratch for the back half of the season and everything like that. You have two guys who I think are happy to play with Nikolai Ehlers right now. And maybe that's not technical enough of an answer for you or for the chat or anything like that. It's a little bit too, random and not results based. But I genuinely think right now we're seeing a good formula of players playing together that makes sense, that understand one another, that are happy to play with one another. And great comment from AJ in the chat, because you can't buy chemistry. And I think you have guys who want that chemistry and are happy to kind of adjust their games a little bit to make the most of what's going on.
And I love this comment from AJ because like the Predators spent like $1 bajillion on the first day of free agency, and the Jets returned the same team. And I think that went under the radar a little bit. The Jets, like, a lot of people did pick the Predators to, make the playoffs and the Jets to miss. Like that is a scenario that people did predict. But the chemistry factor, I think, is playing a massive role. And the one line the two lines, I guess the top two lines, the Connor Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti, Nemestikov, Ehlers, both of those lines hadn't really played a lot together. I mean, last year they both started the year together, and then there was a ton of injuries and Ehlers was up and all that stuff. So you didn't have the chemistry on those two lines. Now the Connor line is dominating at even strength. Like they're on an absolute tear ever since the WST watch party. Nice to see everyone there on that road game at Detroit where they turned it around. And since then, they've been a top line in every sense of the word since that game. The second line, since the first 3 games, also has been dominant. The Lowry line's been here all year long. Like they're still outscoring their opponents like 10-1 at 5-on-5 or something. So it's the chemistry that the Jets didn't have, which was the top 2 lines, quickly got sorted out. And I think it was Jay Miller had a comment earlier on in the show. They're getting better. Like this Jets team just beat the Dallas Stars, and it wasn't even close for the first 40 minutes. Earlier on in the season, they had close games against Chicago, close game in Seattle. That was an overtime game. Like I know that these are not playoff teams and they're tough games to win. Every game is tough to win. That's why this is the best start in NHL history. But they're getting better. Like I don't know how to explain that. The top 2 lines are actively getting better game by game. And because of that, the Jets are getting better and building off the chemistry that they already had. And the Predators, as you can see, they need to sort things out in terms of chemistry. They have not got things going, to say the absolute least. They're up against the cap. They're below 500, and the Jets, I think, have a 17-point gap on them in the standings, 12-point gap on Dallas, and a 14-point gap on Colorado. Like, I know it's only, November 10th, but that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy.
Points in November are the same as points in April. Like, it's a nice cushion to start building up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people giving love for Matthew Perreault in the chat.
Nice to see for sure.
Yeah, this is a great comment. True 4-line team. Most teams are top heavy, can't handle that in the regular season. I think that's a reason why you saw the Jets last year put up 110 points and be one of the best teams in the league. Like, obviously they had the defense, but on a night where maybe the Connor Scheifele Velarde line doesn't have it, the Lowry line will pick up the slack and Mason Appleton will have 2 goals. Like, it's such a sustainable way to win is when you have 4 lines, and it's awesome. And yeah, great to see Kishore in the chat. Great to see everyone in chat. We've got a ton of people here. Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Super Sports Saturday breakdown. Lyss, anything else on kind of what I was just saying about chemistry, the top 2 lines, the Jets getting better? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, not too much. Are we I feel like I'm warming up. Everyone here's, we're chatting about Hockey Night in Canada, we're chatting about Super Saturday success. I feel like it's time for the State of the Union speech I warned you about last night, and of just about how, right now this whole team is playing excellent hockey in this league best start to a season ever. And we're talking about going through all these things, and we have league best this, league best that. Dave Manuk had a really good chat yesterday, or a tweet, pardon me, last night. It was late one, outlining all these things that the Winnipeg Jets are first in the league in right now. And, a lot of people talking about Hockey Night in Canada panel, not talking about it too much. A lot of national media coverage. It's all about, well, would have been a winning streak if it weren't for the Leafs, right? And I just got to say, a Super Sports Saturday like yesterday just reinforces for me that I am here for Winnipeg. Winnipeg, we are Winnipeg together, and I do not care what what national media, what other fans of other fan bases, I don't care what anyone else has to say. We win and lose as a group, and people, maybe they'll come and try and dog when Winnipeg is down and when they're losing and when they lost in 5 to the Colorado Avalanche, whatever. But if you're not here, if you're not from this city, if you don't know these sports teams, if you're from somewhere else and you've been to Winnipeg and you know this fan base through and through when it comes to Jets, when it comes to Bombers, like, I'm not worried about what anyone else has to say about, being in Winnipeg, because I am so freaking proud to pull a Mark Scheifele here. I am so excited to be experiencing this community aspect with Winnipeg Jets fans, with Winnipeg fans who get crapped on for where we live, who get crapped on for nobody wants to be here, who get crapped on for, you're not getting XYZ coverage, we have incredible sports teams in our city right now. We have incredible local media coverage doing an amazing job of actually telling you what's going on. I don't care what someone who covers 32 teams has to say about the Winnipeg Jets. I want to hear what people are talking about, who actually understand the intimacy of this team and where we're at. I am just so proud to be from Winnipeg. And yesterday was such a fun day because it doesn't matter what people from other places are saying, whatever. When we get to be in the city together, experiencing those wins, talking to strangers on the street and talking about it, honking your horn at people you see on the street wearing their Bomber gear, taking the blue line from Canada Life Center down to Princess Auto Stadium. That is what it's all about.
Absolutely. Like, I cannot echo this statement more. Like, the sellout crowd at the Jets game, the sellout crowd at the Bomber game, so much passion for these sports teams. And look, I could not agree more with the media coverage. Like, again, does it suck when you turn on Sports Center or Sportsnet or whatever coverage thing, and they start with the Leafs game where they, ho-hum beat the Montreal Canadiens. Yay, good for them, right? And the Jets just made history. It's like, okay, yeah, that sucks, because you'd like to see the fact that, oh, the Jets have the greatest start in NHL history and they're being recognized a little bit, and more so than the Leafs or the Canadiens or whatever. But I could not agree more. I mean, like, we've got all the media here talking about it. For one, am very thankful of the fact that we get 2 post-game shows after every single game, even when it's like a 9 p.m. game. I remember that Seattle game, 9 p.m. overtime. IC goes live, Legal Curve, till like 1 a.m. Then KNR fire up, and they go from like 1 till 2 a.m. I was watching post-game show at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night. That's how dedicated.
And we're all watching it together. And then these people are WST regulars. And, we see each other at, you run into people on the street and they're like, oh my gosh, this is my name in the WST chat. And you're like,
yes,
nice to see you, and talking to people and everything. And I am more than happy with my Murata Tesh articles, with my Mike McIntyre articles, with my Jacob Stoller articles. I don't need some random American ESPN outlet to cover this Winnipeg Jets start. I'm good because I know this team and I know they're doing well, and that is enough for me. That is enough for me.
I could not agree more. And yeah, yesterday was a day that makes you proud to be from Winnipeg, proud to be a sports fan in Winnipeg. Like I said, the sellout crowds. And I had a take, kind of hyping up this show, or a tweet. I guess it is a take as well. But was yesterday the best sports day in Winnipeg history? I mean, you could argue the day the Jets came back. You could argue any of the Bombers' Grey Cups ever, right?
Yeah.
But man, best start in NHL history, excuse me. And then the Bombers clinched their 5th straight Grey Cup. Like yesterday was one of those days where
Well,
it's
'cause
like you're proud to be living in this moment. It's amazing.
it's two like different things, right? Where it's like
Yes.
one, like the Winnipeg Jets did not win the Stanley Cup there. Like setting a league record is a different type of success than what the Bombers did, right? Someone wins the Western Conference final every single year. Like that's not like a in and of itself a milestone, but 5 years in a row and everything like that. Like you're getting closer to the biggest trophy in your particular league and sport. Like it's big win in that way, but then the other one is like more of a legacy piece, and they both have their own, like one is, yeah, maybe that's the right way to phrase it. One's like a legacy piece and one's like an immediate, like kind of short-term, long-term kind of thing, right? Where it's
Yes.
like they're two very different wins, but they're equally exciting depending on how you want to look at it.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, I mean, I guess now would be a good time to transition maybe to the Bomber game. The Jets, like we've covered it, big win over the Dallas Stars, 4-1, best start in NHL history. We broke it down, taking the weakness of the power play and the special teams in general and turning that into the best power play in the league. Not only a strength, but a strength above every team in the NHL. Really, really impressive start. And I think the credit has to go a lot of places. We talked about it, but Scott Arniel, Davis Payne, Dean Chenoweth, this coaching staff has the Jets playing incredible right now. Their special teams are incredible. That was their biggest knock last year, and they have improved that. Unbelievable start for the Jets. 4-1 win, 14-1, massive point gaps over every good team in the Central. It's, I guess, except Minnesota, who I think they have a 6-point gap on now, which is still something. Like, that's still pretty good. Everyone brings up American Thanksgiving as kind of that day where you kind of know what teams are. Jets might not lose until American Thanksgiving. Like they might just be 21-1 or whatever. Who's to say? I do also want to say last thing on the Jets. Sorry, before we move on. Yesterday I was talking to some people and I brought up the point that when the Jets came back, it felt like they would always win 2 straight, but could never get the third, or like win 3 straight and could never get the fourth. Like they would have multiple 3-game winning streaks in a year, but they would not have 0 4-game winning streaks or something like that. Like they would never really hamper down and take it 1 game at a time. This Jets team, you brought it up, the post-game comments on Thursday, if you would have told me to just listen to Gabe Vilardi speak and Scott Arniel speak, I would have been like, yeah, they lost. Like they're like defeated, and they're talking about how they didn't play well. Connor Hellebuyck was incredible. I'm like, they must have lost this game. No, they won, which was great. But in past years, you've heard, oh, we got the 2 points, whatever, we'll move on. This team took it personal. They knew they didn't play well. Scott Arniel said he didn't even have to say anything after the game. The players knew it. And I think that ability to take it 1 game at a time, not be happy with just winning, right? You've got to win, and the process has to be right. That's what's different, I think, ever since Rick Bowness arrived and what he has instilled and this culture here in Winnipeg with the Jets. Anything else on the Jets before we move on to the Bombers? Lyss.
I think we've said it all. And I think, there's some couple of tests coming up in the next couple of weeks, just like there are every single week and everything. I think Tuesday's game is going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to that one. They don't play till then, right? That's first 2-game break in a little while. Right?
Yes, first 2-day break in like a month, almost.
Yeah, because they had a really tough schedule there.
So, the schedule, just real quick, they have a 2-day break. Then they hit the road. They play New York, Tampa Bay, and Florida, and then they return home for 1 game against Florida. Then they hit the road again. So they come back for 1 game. Then it's a 6-game road trip. Then they come back again for 1 game. I think it's against St. Louis is the other home game. And then they hit the road again for another 3-game road trip. So there's 2 standalone home games in the next 2 weeks. It's basically like a 14-game or 13-game road trip because they go 3 games on the road, 1 game at home. Then they hit the road for 6 straight. Like, that's not a homestand. You come back for 1 game. So this schedule coming up here is easily the toughest part of the Jets schedule for the rest of the season. It's basically a 14-game road trip. You've got really good teams mixed into it, and the Jets are going to lose some games, and they might even lose some head scratcher games here. But like, they've proven, I think, that they're a really good hockey team. And even if they lose a weird game in these next 2 weeks, everyone take a deep breath. I think they'll be okay, because this schedule coming up, like, they're going to lose some weird games. It's such a gauntlet. It's ridiculous.
I always like the Eastern Conference road trips too when they come up, just because those are, teams we don't get to see a ton over the course of the year and stuff like that. So I always find them, really interesting, just from someone who's simply a hockey fan. So I am looking forward to it. But you're right. Like, we haven't seen a 5-0 stinker yet this year, clearly.
Right.
The only game the Winnipeg Jets have lost, they almost came back and took, right? So we haven't seen that yet. So I know there will be some reactions. And again, I think the same way that you talk about each individual win, you can talk about each individual loss too. And if, there are some really bad things we talked about, was it the Leafs game that Sandberg and Pionk had that like disaster class of a game?
Yes.
And
-5. Yeah.
I think people talked about it because it was a game just like every other game. We talked about it. We're like, what went wrong? Why was this so bad? And then they were better the next game. And then we talked about that, right? Like, we'll talk about these games when they happen.
Yes.
But we're not going to start, sounding the alarms or anything like that. But it'll be a good test. And, if there are some reasons to be concerned, we'll be concerned. Don't get me wrong. When pessimistic Lyss has an opportunity to come back, she comes back. Don't worry. But we'll see what happens, right? It is a very, very interesting schedule coming up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's a gauntlet, and some tough teams mixed in there. MSG on the road. Someone's saying here that never do well. Yeah. Nicole J, never do well at MSG. That is true. The Jets won in MSG last year, but like, Hrabchak stole that game entirely. And Sheffield had a hat trick, I believe, as well. So it was a great game, but they do always struggle on these Eastern road trips. So just real quick, as we move on to the Bomber game, a lot of people did do the doubleheader yesterday. Took the blue line straight from the Jets game. Huss had Mayor Scott Gillingham on the show on Friday to let people know how they could get around, hit the blue line, down to the Bomber game and back. Let us know in the chat below if you went to one of the games, if you went to both games.
Yeah.
We want to hear it. And Lyss, you were at the Bomber game, as was I. What a game. All week long, everyone was saying, and I agreed, this game was going to be close. Saskatchewan is playing great right now. They had that weird 2-month stretch where they lost basically every single game, or they actually lost every single game, not basically, but they did. The Bombers turn it around from 0-4, 2-6, host the West Final, and absolutely dominate the Roughriders 38-22. What can you say about just the atmosphere inside Princess Auto Stadium? Sellout crowd. That place was absolutely buzzing right from kickoff.
Man, oh man, what a fun day yesterday. I had such a good time. I'll tell you guys about my gauntlet that I ran. It's not that special, but I went to Tavern United on Pembina, so like Celebrations Canadians, and then to watch the Jets game beforehand, and then walked like 25 minutes, whatever, to Princess Auto Stadium. The whole walk, lots and lots of people there. You're chatting, you're, hitting off with some people as you're walking, you're complimenting their jerseys, whatever. I was wearing this jacket that I found in my closet, in my family closet. I want to give a shout out to Ryan, hand-me-down Ryan, the son of my mom's old coworker who used to give us all kinds of Bomber stuff. Hand-me-down Ryan gave us this awesome, authentic sideline jacket. It was like a team jacket, and I found it in my closet, and I was like, I am taking that. So I had a nice jacket for the weather. It was great. So good. I was sitting in the end zone right on the concrete of, I guess that would be the east end zone. So the one where the Bombers catch in quarters 1 and 3. So I got 3 Kenny Lawler touchdowns right in front of me. Like, Kenny Lawler came and, screamed at us, right? Like, after that was done. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, the atmosphere was so good. And obviously the way the CFL playoffs work, since we knew that the Bombers were playing in this game before the Riders were there, absolutely no Riders fans. Like, I bet you I counted like
Well,
150 Rider fans. I'm not even joking. Like, there was a
I
section.
saw a
I was
few.
right beside the family section. I was right beside the family
Okay.
section. So all the Riders came over afterwards. So there was a lot in that section. Don't get me wrong. After that, the odd one, I would say usually when there's a regular season game, Banjo Bowl sort of thing, you're getting 1 in every 4, 1 in every 5. Lots of people, yeah, shout out to Hand Me Down Ryan. But
Hand me down,
yesterday,
Ryan.
that was a sea of blue. That was a sea of blue.
Yeah, and before the Western semifinal even wrapped up, I think there was 150 tickets left, 200 tickets left for this Bomber game. They had already announced before the Riders won. So, I saw some comments, and it's Riders fans on Twitter or whatever commenting, "Oh yeah, it's a sellout because the Riders are coming and the fans are going to be there." It's like, no, this
They
is,
sold out 5 regular season games before that.
and the Riders can't even sell out their own stadium. We don't have to go there, but I mean,
We
there's
you
the
know
Western
we can't talk about
semifinal.
sellouts of crowds in Winnipeg. We can't be doing that. We can't
They
be doing
sold out. The Jets sold out yesterday. We're back. We're
We're
back. No,
back.
no. But the Riders had like 10,000 people, 10,000 empty seats in their West semifinal. So
That's actually
interesting. And
insane.
their
That's
one
horrible.
sellout of the year was against the Bombers on Labor Day. Which
That's nuts. That's nuts.
yeah,
That you can actually claim is, if it was like same thing, but I'm not trying to be like biased, whatever. If the Bombers had 0 sellouts except for the Banjo Bowl, I would say yeah, it's because of the Rider fans. Like the same
that's
way that if the Winnipeg Jets' first sellout of the season was the Leafs game, but it wasn't.
yeah,
It was
right,
a Dallas
yeah,
game. And I bet you we don't have a lot of Dallas Stars fans poking around here in Winnipeg. So,
yes.
but I got to
So
shout out a couple of the Riders fans who I think, were pulling double enemy yesterday and, wore their green to the Jets game, made the trip out. Why not catch 2 pro sports games? And you got to shout it out. Very, very fun thing to do. So I hope they had a good time and, enjoyed their 2 losses that we handed them. So
I hope they had a good time, but they got smoked. So yeah. I just real quick on the atmosphere inside that stadium. Just right from kickoff, I mean, everyone was fired up. Obviously, the Jets won. A lot of people made that trip. Best start in NHL history. Show up to the Bomber game, and they came out flying. And what you see sometimes with teams coming off the bye that clinch the 1 seed, you saw with Montreal in the early slate against Toronto, which Toronto is the team that the Bombers are taking on in the Grey Cup, 5th straight Grey Cup. But what you see sometimes is a lot of turnovers. We saw it in 2021 when the Bombers played the Riders in the West Final and they turned the ball over 5 times in the first half and somehow still won that game. But what you see sometimes is a little bit of rust, a slow start, a lot of turnovers, some fumbles, some picks, things like that. You did not see any of that from the Bombers. Their offense was clicking. It looked maybe the best it had looked all year long. Kenny Lawler had 4 catches for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he just every catch he had was 30 or more yards, and he had one 70-yard catch that wasn't even a touchdown. Like, he absolutely dominated that game. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the
covering
Bucs.
him super well. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think kind of where I fall is like I I always worry again, like it was a nice warm day yesterday, but not that warm in the sense of, how your fingers start getting cold when you're outside after a while. And every time I would watch them snap the ball back and I'd watch Zach Caleros catch with his bare fingers, I was like, oh boy, when is it gonna be the time? I thought he played really well yesterday. Brady Oliveira had some massive runs, like especially, and I thought, again, I won't go into my whole thing about football, but I struggle sometimes with trying to be super critical about football because I'm like, I never really know, nobody really knows when it's play calls, when it's, kind of some
right.
impromptu stuff, whatever. But I thought they did a really good job yesterday of hitting the hot hand. When Brady Oliveira had a couple of huge runs down the field, they push him in for a touchdown, right? When Kenny Lawler was absolutely cooking, couldn't miss a catch, keep throwing it to him,
They
right?
were
And I
throwing
think
it
they
up.
did a
Yeah.
really, really nice job of kind of riding the highs that their star players were providing for them. It's going to be really, really too bad. I'd love to see, obviously, the Grey Cup would be great. Bomber Grey Cup without Dalton Schoen or Adam Big Hill's name on it is going to be pretty heartbreaking because, I would have loved to have seen both of those guys playing yesterday. Jay Miller saying home was the man. Couple of
Yeah.
massive plays by Evan Home yesterday too. Holy smokes. That
It was
was
so good.
really, really awesome. But yeah, it was a really fun game yesterday. And a couple of guys, Wilson had a couple of really good catches and everything. Like, a lot of guys contributed to that win. Willie Jefferson, gotta shout out that guy always. So much fun. And I love the way that football players interact with the crowd and get them psyched up and everything like that. I just think that, there's so much good that can be said. Some people are joining in the chat late and, offering their condolences to Ted Wyman and his family and everything. Mike O'Shea winning their biggest game of the year and starting the post-game presser, offering his condolences. I think it just goes to show, and this is kind of similar to the speech I gave earlier in the show, right? That this is a city and a team that fosters a culture of, if you want to be here, we want you here. We celebrate each other. We lift each other up. We're there for each other in times that are difficult. We celebrate these successes together. This isn't about anyone else. This isn't about people who are from, other places who don't normally care about these teams until they start winning. This is for us. We're here together. And I think Mike O'Shea has fostered a really good culture on this Bombers team.
Oh, yeah.
5 straight Grey Cup appearances is, no small feat, even though there are only 9 teams in the CFL. It's an incredibly impressive result and performance from Mike O'Shea and his coaching staff. So incredible day yesterday, incredible atmosphere. Bomber games are always a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to next Sunday for the Jonas Brothers concert.
Right. Yes, of course. Not the football game, but really classy of Mike O'Shea to start his presser, like you said, offering his condolences to Ted Wyman. He had a great quote. You can check it out on the Bombers website. They post the videos of the media availabilities. But yeah, Mike O'Shea, like saying that he has turned the culture around here in Winnipeg is like the understatement of the century. Like he's done so much more than that. He's like build the statue already. Like it's almost a lock that he gets us. I mean, he won't like it because Mike O'Shea notoriously does not like the spotlight, but he's getting a statue whether he likes it or not out front of Princess Auto Stadium. And yeah, unbelievable game yesterday. I feel like sometimes those summer Bomber games can be, they don't mean as much, obviously, and sometimes the Bombers blow the other team out, or the game is just kind of ho-hum and it isn't really entertaining at times, but then really picks up in the fourth quarter, things like that. And then the crowd really gets into it. But yesterday, the atmosphere is always great for Bomber games, like I said, but from kickoff, that crowd was absolutely going, and it carried through. And then the Bombers go up 14-0 to start the game, and it's even more. And it's unbelievable. And yeah, Jeff here saying, but the Bombers are old. They're not supposed to win again. And
and someone made a comment. That it's rebuilding teams struggle to fill their stadiums and everything. I get it. Like Bombers games were not the vibe for, a period of time, especially when they were, first in Princess Auto Stadium when it was first built and everything. I get it. And I understand that, rebuilds are inevitable in sports and everything like that. But I think it's all about, celebrating when you have those opportunities. And this team, shout out to Wade Miller and to that whole team. They've put together a winning roster, and Winnipeg Blue Mars fans are responding to it. The Winnipeg community is responding to it, right? And winning feels good, right? We felt that yesterday. It feels nice.
Winning solves everything, right? That's the adage. But I do just want to say, you're talking about like rebuilding the Bombers, their dynasty, the legacy. Next year they host the Grey Cup here in Winnipeg. Yeah. I think that's like going to be the last dance per se.
Yeah,
for this,
I agree.
For this core. Like, I think that's when you'll see Stanley Bryan and Zach Caleros retire, is after next year. I think they're targeting that as the last push. They're hosting the Grey Cup. They've made 5 straight. If they win on Sunday, that's 3 Grey Cups for this core. And they'll look to make it 4, I think. And then, the Bombers are old. Let's call spade a spade. Like, they're an older team. They have an older core. So I do think that will be the last dance. And then the Bombers will have to look and maybe retool. Like, they have the core pieces, like Rat River Rebels says here, Brady Oliveira, 27 years old, right? Like, they have some younger players. Ontario Wilson's a younger player that they can have for a long time. Dalton Schoen, Kenny Lawler, those aren't players that are like on the brink of retirement per se. Maybe they're a little bit older, but I do think next year, the Adam Bighill, Chris Strevler, I don't even know if they're going to come back into next year.
Yeah.
Chris Strevler probably not. He's a little bit older, and 3 ligaments in your knee, tearing that, not an easy thing to come back from. So I do think that next year will be a last dance per se.
We'll see though. It'll be interesting because I think, I with this whole thing talking about, Winnipeg and wanting to be here, and how the Winnipeg Jets have turned this incredible roster out of guys who want to be here. And if players don't want to be on the Winnipeg Jets, then we don't want you, and that's okay. And we can make do on our own. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have turned into a destination in the CFL.
Yes.
Players want to come here. This is a winning culture. This is a team in a city that respects its players, that cares about them as people, that gives them the tools to succeed professionally. I agree with you in terms of like the core and everything, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a team that continues to make Western final appearances for a few years to come. If players are continually wanting to sign here because they believe they have a chance to win, they believe it's going to be a good place for their families to feel supported, they believe it's going to be a good place for them to grow in their careers, I could see them, making a lot of splashes when it comes to bringing in players.
Absolutely. I agree. And I know sometimes fan impact of like games gets kind of overstated a little bit. Like like yesterday's crowd, incredible, definitely played a factor. But the amount of sellouts that the Bombers have had over these past couple years and the atmosphere, I think players enjoy that. Like all these players come from these massive US colleges, right? Like Ontario Wilson went to Florida State where they're playing in front of 80,000 people.
Yeah,
And you're not going to,
though, but
yeah, they suck. They suck this year in general. They're terrible.
Yeah.
But you go from 80,000 people in a packed stadium, super loud. You can't replicate that in the CFL. And when you go to these other markets that are having these attendance issues, it just feels bleak, right? It feels bleak. And in Winnipeg, it's the absolute opposite of that. This like 32,300 every single game. And everyone is into it. Everyone's loud. That's the closest thing that you're going to get to these college atmospheres that these players are coming from in the States. It's the culture from truly top to bottom with Wade Miller, Mike O'Shea, all the way down to the fans and the 5 straight sellouts to end the year, and the crowd yesterday, and the crowds for the last couple years ever since COVID have just been incredible. Any thoughts on the Jonas Brothers concert, the Grey Cup on Sunday, and Toronto without Chad Kelly? Don't watch the replay if you don't like that stuff, but his ankle not
Chad.
very
I'm cut
not
up
very
it.
attached
so
to
sad for him.
So sad. Anyways, any thoughts on next Sunday's game?
Yeah, I'm interested because I think across the board, especially now that he who shall not be named will not be quarterbacking the team. Like I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers check a lot of boxes. And if you are comparing one-on-one like we are in a Grey Cup matchup, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I give the edge in a lot of different categories. But it's also very difficult. Grey Cup is one game. This is not a 7-game series that we're working with here. And adversity and rallying has a huge impact on team performance and team results. Can you imagine the Winnipeg Jets if, they were in game 7 of a Stanley Cup final and, in game 6, Connor Hellebuyck got hurt? Can you imagine the type of team game they would play in that game 7 to win that hockey game? Right. So the Toronto Argonauts, I think, are going to be very interesting. It'll be really interesting to see if that like adrenaline rally behind your backup quarterback sort of energy has a huge impact. But, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now didn't win a fluke game yesterday. Their offense was really strong. Their defense managed Saskatchewan really well, especially when it mattered. I think the score kind of near the end of the game wasn't like that extra touchdown they got at the end meant nothing, right? So I think since Winnipeg is playing good defense and like is playing well right now, I feel okay about it. It's not like any kind of fluke situation or anything like that. But I'm not sleeping soundly by any means, right? I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the better team. Yes, I do. But the better team doesn't win every single football game. We see it all the time, right? So,
and last year against Montreal, the whole talk going into the final 4 games, so the games that just happened yesterday, but last year, the talk was that the West Final was the Grey Cup. The West Finals, the Grey Cup.
I remember that, yeah.
Winnipeg, BC are the best 2 teams. This is the real Grey Cup. Bombers were favored by more than a touchdown against Montreal in that Grey Cup. I think the final line was like 7.5 points. Like they were the better team all year long over Montreal. Montreal goes in the Cinderella run, the drive with whatever it is, 1.5 minutes left. Cody Fajardo wins the game. Like this, the CFL, the Crazy Football League, as Jeff Hamilton and Hustler on CFL 110 always say, it's the Crazy Football League. Whatever the line is, whatever the Bombers are favored by, I will not be confident because of last year. And they were favored by a touchdown. Like they were supposed to win. And the West final was the Grey Cup and all these things. But no, this is, and with Toronto's quarterback, he who shall not be named, getting hurt, I think there's going to be a lot of that talk this week. Is like, oh, they don't have their quarterback. So last week was the real Grey Cup. The Bombers should win. They should roll. No, this is, we learned from last year, let's say.
Yeah.
We learned from
Well, I
last
mean,
year.
that's why I love the CFL, right? And that's why anyone who loves the CFL loves the CFL. 3 downs, the game can change with the snap of a finger. You blink and the
Yeah.
game is in completely different hands, right? So you can never, this isn't Kansas City Chiefs running out the last 6 minutes of the clock here. Like this is real football. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
This is real ball. This is real ball. And Comet was asking earlier on, let's see if I can get the comment up. Will Swift and Kelsey go to the Grey Cup game? Chiefs are on a bye week. The Chiefs are on their bye week this week. That's
week.
Wob Canoe made the comment there, inviting Travis Kelsey, said bring Taylor Swift as well to the game that happened yesterday. But the Chiefs do play next week, so I don't think they will be, even though him and Zach Caleros, best buddies, he's got the jersey on, he's got the bobblehead on.
My hope was that Jason would make an appearance this week. I was like, maybe we can get that boy out there, but I doubt it's going to happen. But Taylor Swift is playing in Vancouver in a couple of weeks, so if the timelines had worked out, it could have been really interesting. But it's too bad. But I think I would love. Man, I spoke about earlier. I'm like, I don't care what people from other places or who don't care what this team have to say when they're doing poorly, so therefore I don't care what they have to say when they're doing well. But man, oh man, this is not, I don't hold that same regard for people who simply don't know. And there are a lot of Taylor Swift fans out there who don't know anything about the CFL. They don't know. They figured out what the NFL is. They know who the Travis Kelsey is. They have the tight end position down to a science. But if we can get a Grey Cup win and get, Zach Caleros onto new heights, and you get Travis Kelsey start talking about it and get a little bit of attention there, I'd love that. Winnipeg's a great place. We would welcome you with open arms, Taylor Swift fans.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a ton of fun. The media coverage over the next week is going to be awesome. Huss and Remo are heading to the Grey Cup. They did last year. They're going this year. Super excited to see everything that comes out of that weekend and the content that they bring to the table, because last year it was
shows this week. Man, oh man, it's gonna be awesome.
Gonna be some great shows. Make sure you have the notification bell hit down below, the subscribe button as well. We just hit 12,000 subscribers. That was during Friday's show. So thank you to everyone for subscribing, liking this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you've hit the like button, hit that notification bell. Not sure if there's going to be a show tomorrow. I don't have the inside source on that. But Huss and Remo will let you know. Stay glued to the socials at Sports Talk WPG. The fact that both of these teams won makes me think that there might be a show tomorrow. There might not be. We'll see. But anyways, what a day. Super Sports Saturday. The Jets, best start in NHL history, a 4-1 win over the Dallas Stars. And then later on, the Blue Bombers take care of business. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, West Final, they dominate 38-22. Yes, there will be Jets Weekly tomorrow. Great question. Stay tuned for my hardest working Jet, 3 stars of the week. Can't wait for that. There'll definitely be some Bombers flavor in Jets Weekly as well. I'm not just going to keep it strictly Jets.
Just like today, we dabble a little bit when there's something we're dabbling in. But WST fans, Winnipeg sports fans, you guys deserved yesterday. Yesterday was a good day, and I hope everyone enjoys it for everything that it's worth. And Christian McCaffrey also gets a shout out from Kabil's in the chat here. Connor's happy, so am I, because he's on my freaking fantasy team. So we're playing some real football now. So we're feeling good, feeling happy, and I hope everyone is taking this for everything it's worth, because the highs of winning in sports don't feel the same without knowing the lows of winning or of losing, right? You can't really feel both emotions super strongly without the other. And, there've been some tough times as Bomber fans, not recently, but if you've been a Bomber fan your whole life, there've been some tough times as Jets fans, as, recent as last spring. Enjoy this while we have it, because we're having a good time, and you're allowed to soak this in, because these teams are the real deal.
Like I said, it's, well, maybe not the greatest day in Winnipeg sports history. Maybe it is, but it's definitely up there. And I had a tweet yesterday morning. Days like this are days that you dream of if you're a Winnipeg sports fan, and you could only dream and hope that the Jets not only would beat the Stars, but dominate the Stars, and then the Bombers would dominate the Roughriders. Like, these two games weren't close. This was a masterclass in Winnipeg sports. Bad day to be the color green. Great call. Thank you everyone for tuning in. That's going to do it for us. I'm Connor Hrabchak. She's Lyss Houde. Thank you for joining us. WST Sunday Live every single Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll be back next Sunday breaking down the week that was for the Winnipeg Jets. We will talk to you all then. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Bombers and Jets, 14-1 and off to the Grey Cup. Have a great week, everyone. See ya.